Bad Cat recently introduced a number of updates to their line of boutique amps, including a few fan favourites, which make these incredibly versatile amps even more versatile. Now, confession time, I've never actually had my hands on Bad Cat amps until they recently updated this line. I was always under the impression that they were kind of UK voiced boutique style amps, which, you know, is not a bad thing, but certainly there's a lot more going on under the hood with these feisty felines. I want to focus on two specific models, one the Black Cat and the other is the Hot Cat, both in a 1x12 combo. We do actually have some standalone videos as well, just playing of the Cub also, and the links will be above my head and down below as well. So if you do just want to see the sounds, do click on those, but I want to dive a little deeper with these two, starting with the Black Cat. Specs out the way first, the Black Cat is a 20 watt, previously 30 watt, 1x12 combo with two EL84 and three 12AX7 power tubes which control two foot switchable channels. Yes, I nailed that. It comes loaded with a 12-inch custom voice Celestion V30 speaker, buffered effects loop, and a line out which we've used for some of this video where we've added a Zilla 2x12 V30 cab in post. Looking at the face of the amp, we have got individual channel and master volume controls on each there. The channel volume's pretty much acting as the gain control, much like, you know, a Vox or a Matchless or something like that. We have a channel select switch there, which also is a foot switchable one. I've got it on the floor. This is the one for the Hot Cat right here. A shared EQ and a cut control, which actually comes in really handy, especially when you want to kind of tame off some of those high frequencies. So I'll let you actually hear it. So I'm going through this dealer select Telecaster that's loaded with custom no-caster pickups in there. And in some of the sound demos, you will hear it with a Les Paul 2. With the channel select switch on the front, as well as controls for the tremolo, which the on is just right there as well. But that can actually be controlled with a foot switch, which looks exactly like that, just at my feet. There's also the reverb control just at the end too. Now the cut control is something that I want to touch on, which is a really handy feature with this amp. Now, you'll know what I mean just as soon as I start kind of messing about with this here. So this is it completely off. And if I start to bring that cut in, it just kind of smooths out those higher frequencies. Until you turn it right all the way up and it sounds like somebody's throwing a blanket over the top of your cab, which can be quite a cool sound, to be fair. Now the cut is a lot more apparent when you've got a bit of gain kind of going through the amp as well. Now that was me just on channel 1. You can get it, you know, quite cranked if you do turn the volume for the channel up by itself. It can get that kind of natural sort of distortion that you would expect from, say, a Vox or something. With the Bad Cat, they have included the channel 2 with it, which I'll just put on just now, which this is what you would kind of call your gain channel, but more than anything, these channels are somewhat connected just in terms of, I would say that channel 2 is almost a step up just from channel 1. They're both kind of going for the same sort of thing. Now if you do turn that volume down for there, which is the gain control pretty much, you're almost getting that kind of pushed channel 1 sound, which is really cool. The cut becomes incredibly apparent when you start to crank the second channel. While the Black Cat quite clearly wears its influences on its sleeve in terms of its, you know, kind of UK tube amp sort of sound that it is going for, the inclusion of that second channel I think is incredibly interesting, not only because it gives you, you know, a dedicated, say, overdrive distortion channel for, you know, whatever rig you're going for. It can be set up in quite interesting ways, I think, also in terms of, say, channel 1 is your sort of plain clean, you know, there's not really any colouring going on. You've got a lot of headroom going on in there, and it's, you know, it's great for any overdrives or anything that you want to stick on it. But with channel 2, it can almost act as like your edge of breakup sort of tone, like your first gain stage. Certainly in these days, I've seen a lot of guitarists, including myself, put a lot of gain pedals on a board, you know, 2, 3, I've even seen folk with 4 or 5. Just in it's all these slight incremental steps, and this amp really suits that, I think, just in terms of adding just that little bit of colour to your signal, obviously without having to go over and adjust settings on the amp on the fly. So yeah, I'm super impressed with this, and I think it's a really good kind of all-rounder for anybody who either wants a pedal platform or likes a more vintage sort of sound. Black Cat is definitely one to check out for, you know, any AC30 fans out there. For something that's got just that little bit extra gain, let's move over to the Hot Cat. Coming in at 45 watts of power with the same 12-inch custom voice Celestion speaker in the back, the Hot Cat is actually loaded with 4 12AX7 tubes and 2 EL34 tubes, which gives this much more of a sort of like bitey, martially tone than you would expect with the Black Cat. The Hot Cat also features 2 channels which can be controlled via the foot switch as well, but unlike the Black Cat, each of these channels are very different to each other instead of being kind of, you know, like a stepped up version of each other. Checking out the front, we do have a shared EQ on this amp, kind of very similar to the other one, along with the inclusion of a presence knob. The changes with this one actually being that there are independent proper gain controls and also a shared master, which means that you can kind of set your volumes for each channel just with those 2 knobs there and kind of get a bit more of a clean, dirty thing going on rather than, as I said, the kind of stepped up versions of sort of clean overdrive. Another really notable feature to mention with this amp is actually the inclusion of a high and low mode. Now, there is the switch just right here on the front, but that can be controlled via your foot switch too. What that essentially does is it gives you almost 2 extra channels to work with, whether one be, you know, a boost for your distortion channel for a solo, or even just adding additional headroom to the first channel. It is kind of a lot going on under, you know, what seems to be quite an easy sort of setup there, so there's not much room for confusion really. Worth mentioning as well that the Hot Cat does have reverb, which actually has been tuned for each channel as well, buffered effects loop and a line out, which you'll hear a bit of in this demo too. Decided to swap to something with a little bit hotter pickups in it, so I'm using the Les Paul for this one. Even just checking out the first channel here. Nice and clean. It's kind of on the edge of breakup there as well, but you can ramp that gain down just a little bit to get a bit of kind of cleanup on there. But ramping it up all the way to the top, it does kind of start to break up quite nicely. But of course, where all the fun comes in is with the second channel. So right off the bat, immediately tons of sustain coming from that, just a really kind of solid rhythm tone. You can ramp that gain up, which certainly I can feel that in the room. But this is where you kind of start to move more into kind of almost like, you know, kind of dirty 70s sort of territory. It's like, think kind of, you know, some kind of newer school sort of Black Sabbath, like that kind of tone. And as I mentioned, if you do want to throw on the high option for this too, I'm going to throw a little bit more reverb into here and kind of hear how this handles kind of solo-wise. But this is just on the low option. Then kicking on the high. Tons of flexibility just in one package, and that's kind of the aim of the game with Bad Cat at the moment. You know, you've got your specific voiced, you know, UK amps. They can sort of be a bit narrow-fielded sometimes. If you do like that, but then want something a little bit more kind of modern on the other channel, then definitely the Hot Cat is giving you a little bit of that while still retaining to slightly more vintage tones if you do want them also. So what do you think? Have you ever tried Bad Cat amps at all? Is there any in the lineup that you're particularly excited over? Obviously, let us know down in the comments, and while you're there, give us a like and subscribe. Every single like on this video, I will play with my actual cats in real life. But until then, I've been Keiran. Have a great day.